Well, hello, good afternoon to everyone out there in La La Land and ships at sea. And it's Flag Day. Today is, what is today? June 14th,
14.
2024. Um, the weather's hot. There's a heat dome, whatever the hell that is. We can talk about that. There's all sorts of stuff going on. We'll talk today. We've got excellent guests from Great America. She's right there on your screen. Say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
And we've got Art and Greg here. So yeah, it's Ask Us Anything Friday. A quick update to what's going on in the industry. I don't know if I can add much. Art, you might be able to. I think the last time we talked, there was kind of a lull in business with some of the dealers I've been talking to. That was 2-3 weeks ago. Boy, layoffs though, not in our industry, but are all over the place. What did I hear last night? Some healthcare network somewhere, 40,000 people getting laid off. I mean, these aren't like 100 here and 12 there. These are big cracks going. So that's still going on. And of course, that'll affect office technology, as well as there's more talk I hear about the big looming commercial real estate bubble, quote unquote, that's going to pop in 2025 because the banks are extending and pretending their existing loans. So they're giving a lot of loans came up, and I guess you probably talk more about this, but looks like the bubble, those things are going to pop next year. So everyone's bracing for that. But there has been some good news on the office front too. People, what did I read? Oh, someone converted a baseball field, like a semi-pro field, into apartments. So I thought that was pretty cool. So it still looks like a baseball diamond, but there are apartments where there used to be bleachers and things. So that was pretty neat.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, Art, what do you see? What's going on in the copier industry this week or the last couple of weeks?
Last couple of weeks, it's been. I spoke to Earl earlier today, and it was it's been
Chi-Town.
yeah.
Big White.
It's basically the last 3-4 weeks have been like pulling teeth, trying to get deals to come to fruition.
Okay.
Every deal seems to lag. Everyone seems to have an excuse. It's that there's definitely a slowdown.
Do you think that's seasonal?
Yeah, I was just
time
thinking.
time of the year?
So yeah, I do. Part of it's vacations, they've got their summer vacations, the kids are out of school. I also see Friday midday. Basically, I'm not getting any emails at all. Probably after 11 o'clock, I don't get an email anymore. So that's basically everybody just shutting down on the Friday, trying to take a little extra time.
Or do you want us
Well,
to send you emails Friday afternoon
Sure.
so you don't feel lonely?
Sure.
We're still working.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Saw a nice big article that Friday is the fading work day. So, I mean, California started that when I was out there, 2008 and 9. No one went to work on Friday just because they blamed it all on traffic. But, that was a good reason to blame everything on. But that happened. And then, so because of hybrid and fear of COVID and the new way of work, Fridays are kind of getting diminished. They're no longer casual; they're optional.
Right.
That's interesting. That's
Right.
interesting.
So I'm going to pick up on that that one thing that you said about the real estate crash.
Yeah.
I've been watching some certain real estate people in New Jersey, right? And they're talking about, and they were focused on New Jersey, but in particular, they were focused on Monmouth County, which is where I live.
Okay.
Now, Monmouth County is a hop, skip, and a jump away from New York City, hop, skip, and a jump away from Philly, and then also Atlantic City.
Okay.
They expect no downturn or bust in that Monmouth County real estate. And Monmouth County real estate is even expected to expand even more, gaining 3 to 5% each year.
Wow.
So
that, I mean,
I live in a good spot.
Well, yeah, that is a good spot.
I was just talking about in general real estate.
Okay. Well, it kind of fits into the model, the hybrid model, because more residential or maybe even office space is moving out into the burbs. I guess I'll call it that. But I had an interesting conversation just the other day about this. Wow. Yeah, the guys were talking about how, and it was a bunch of commercial real estate dudes. These are higher end dudes talking about the shift out into the suburbs, and that's the wrong word, but out away from the city core by corporations. And actually, the conversation was about the mom and pops coffee shops, right? And really, it started off with now they've got all these work at home folks that go to the coffee shops, buy one coffee, and stay there for 8 hours. So they're like, now what are we going to do? We've got this chair that's filled for 8 hours, and we only sold one coffee. So we talked about that, and then it swerved into office like Fortune 100, Fortune 1000s actually buying up coffee stores, coffee shops in the suburbs and making it their own, but would also be a coffee shop. And I think we might have talked about that, or it came up before somewhere else, but that was very interesting to me. So like Johnson & Johnson, who may be sending people home, would it was about workspace. Yeah. Would buy a coffee shop or set up a quote coffee shop, but had extra space for, work from home workers, office space and stuff like that, that would be geared for their employees that live in the area, but would also be open for the general public. New business model. That was an interesting conversation. But anyway,
I read an article, hotels, you can go into public spaces of hotels, and hotels are kind of questioning now, how do
you revenue that?
how do I get people not just camping there all day, but if you want that social vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the days when I would go to the coffee shops and there'd be no one else there. Right. So they would love to have someone sitting there. Doesn't matter. Right. Because they're going to be there anyway, stocking shelves, doing whatever, but now because there's actual demand 9 to 5, because people are staying home, they're starting to wonder. My whole thing was, well, don't you guys remember when no one came in? And their idea was, well, we're gonna shut off the Wi-Fi, or we're gonna put a sign up that says you can only stay for 5 minutes, or whatever it was. So, yeah, so you're gonna piss off your customers, even though they only buy one. Why are they only buying one? Right? So
Right.
you've got a customer sitting there for 8 hours. There's nothing you can think of that they might want to buy. So anyway,
That's interesting about the hotels because whenever,
hotels.
yeah, there's no way of them telling, who you are if you're a guest or if you're not a guest. Just walk in, sit down, maybe have a drink, relax.
Done it a million times at the bar. I mean, they love you out there at the bar for, again, 11:30 in the morning. That's a little early, but a Bloody Mary's fine. But they love it. So now, Tawnya, what do you do again at GA?
So I have a very interesting job.
Oh,
I I know enough financing to be dangerous, so don't pepper me with financing related questions. I am actually much more of a nerd. So my goal in life is to really understand what is it that our customers do, what are the systems that they use, and then on the flip side, what does Great America do, and what are the systems we use, and build the bridge between the two. So I work primarily with our customers, our integration partners, like the software applications that everybody uses in the industry, our sales team. So it's our own internal IT group. So it's a really fun opportunity to kind of poke my fingers in all sorts of different pies.
That's pretty interesting.
I joke and I say I literally have the coolest job at Great America.
So I'll bring up something that I thought of years ago, and since Great America isn't a bank, you don't have all those compliance regulations that banks do, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so did Great America ever, because guys like Greg and I, we're old, we're past our prime.
Careful.
But there's that younger generation, which are now business owners and business owners to be, that rely on that electronic or app payments, Venmo, PayPal, other apps like that to pay their bills. Do you ever think that's an option for a leasing company to get into?
We are constantly exploring how can we get our money faster at the convenience of our customer's customer. So I would say we have explored a lot of different things, and really my philosophy is throughout the entire financing process. I mean, in this industry, financing is the lifeblood. And so how do we incorporate financing into our customer, the dealer, to make it as easy as possible? So that's why the integrations with whatever CRM or proposal tool or ERP, anything, if we don't have to have them leave whatever system they've chose to do business in, but still facilitate data transfer and transactional flow, that's a win. So, Great America is known for their, high levels of customer service. You call during business hours, you're not getting voicemail, you get a real person.
Right.
So we're still very available to customers that want to interact that way. But to your point, there are more and more people that don't want to have to pick up the phone. I'm not particularly young, but I also don't want to call someone. If I go to any website and there's a chat option, I don't really care if it takes me 4 times as long to do it, because I'm probably multitasking and doing other things while I'm chatting to solve that problem. And there's some piece in that, if the person who's answering that chat doesn't know the answer, they can go, turn and talk to their neighbor about solving it. Whereas on the phone, sometimes people feel like they have to give an answer, whether it's the right one or not. Right. So I have peace in knowing that I'm probably getting the right answer, because they don't have to respond. In a phone conversation, if you don't respond, it's weird. But in a chat, if there's a little bit of a delay, it's fine. Plus I can do other things while I'm dealing with whatever that is. Yeah. I think that is going to be the way of the future. People need that as an option. It's not the only option, but it needs to be an option.
Right. And the chats are pretty unique also, because you can save the chats.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is much better than
and faster than email,
Correct.
So it's kind of a nice happy medium.
Well, yeah. And, I mean, not to get generational, but no one uses the phone anymore. I mean, in their, when I say generational, right? Or email, right? Email has taken a plunge. And it kind of makes sense. Everything can get done with the text now, or meetings can be emails and emails can be text. I think I saw a meme along those lines.
Well, and we're even taking one of our new technologies we've introduced. It's called text to app. You just text this number, gets an app submitted directly into our credit processing system, get a response. I mean, so we'll take your app any way you want to send it. You can email it, you can put it on a portal, you can push a button in your CRM, you can text it to us, you can go to a web form. I mean, we have lots of options, and that's just one example.
Wow. So it's a lot different than 10 years ago.
Hopefully. Or else I'm not doing a very good job.
Wow.
Do you think at some time the end users will be able to use PayPal or Venmo or the others to actually pay their invoice?
I think that there is definitely possibilities. We have vetted out a few of them. I can't give you a timeline on what that horizon looks like. But we are all about automated payments, ACH. I mean, paper checks are a pain for everybody. They're the pain for the person cutting the check. They're the pain for the person processing the check. So we really would prefer to have an electronic means of payment.
It seems weird, but now paper checks seem to get lost more than they used to.
U.S. mail.
That's weird. Yeah, I just thought about that, because everyone's used to just shooting it off electronically, as opposed to getting the right address, of getting the postage, to getting it to the post office, having humans touch it, screw it up, mess it up. Wow. Interesting.
I will mail checks back to corporate that I pick up from customers. And I've given up sending it via the regular mail, because they probably lost 35% of those checks.
Oh, man.
Now I've got to send it next day delivery service or something like that, or so I get a receipt that it was received.
It's more expensive. So,
yeah.
I mean,
it is.
Who's paying for that,
Yeah. Well, there's nothing better than sending an invoice and then getting a payment in 15 minutes. This, especially if you're from the old 10 net 10 and or net 30, 10, whatever the heck that used to be. Remember the terms? If you pay before 30 days, you get a 10% discount and all that. But
we have online payment now from our end users. So there's a portal they can log into, enter their ACH information. So that's available today. I would say we will probably expand the capabilities as time goes
It,
by.
it would seem interesting to me that maybe GA could create their own app that would interface out with other banks, right? As opposed to using Venmo or one of the other ones, just the GA. Yeah, you're leasing with us, you can pay your lease, but by the way, here you go. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's even
I,
possible.
I think there are options. I mean, when it comes to electronic payments, and I'm certainly not the expert in this, by the way,
Right.
so just with a big asterisk there, we can accept electronic payments directly from your bank. We can also
Yeah.
pull directly from your bank, and we can have you set up one-time payments, so bank to bank.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we have options as far as how it works today, but like I said, we're constantly exploring, the one thing that I love most about Great America is we really do look at things from the customer's perspective. And the customer we've always treated as the equipment seller, the dealer. But we understand that that dealer needs to make their customer happy, and we call that
Mhm.
the end user. So we're really focusing on how do we make that end user experience and that customer experience such that it's very frictionless.
Right, right. Well, I remember that from the old days. I mean, leasing companies were always, well, not always. They weren't the, well, how would you say this? They were the salespeople of the world, I guess. Car salesmen back in the olden days, and GA always stood ahead because of the relative competition. Wasn't as focused before. But anyway, I don't want to make it a puff piece on GA.
I'm comfortable with this.
I bet you are. So I have a question though. So you've been in this position where you're going to match needs and to existing solutions and puzzle pieces together, much like the olden days when you're doing Doc Man, when we would do those kinds of studies and figure out what even oh, wow, even back to when bringing people from manual accounting systems to digital, you'd had to figure out how they did it today and how it's going to translate. So what's that looking like out in the world right now? Right? I mean, considering post COVID, all the influences, everything we just talked about, and then throw in AI. I mean, what's going on in that world?
We are actually, I would say, heavily experimenting right now with using AI technology to automate a lot of things, not only internally, but for our customers. And so the approach that we're kind of taking is we're experimenting to find out what works, what doesn't work, what can be scaled. And so this is kind of the first technology where you're not necessarily programming the intelligence. The intelligence is being extracted and built upon itself. And so I think it's a really interesting time for us right now because you got to have a lot of kind of things in the hopper, trying them out. Some are going to work, some aren't going to work, some are going to make a whole lot of sense, some aren't. And so just having a environment that allows that experimentation is going to be key for customers.
Yeah. Do you see our customers asking for it? I mean, the AI is it's so hard to put your hands around. There's no ROI on it. There's no business case per se. Is it more along the lines as we're building something that we think our customers would like, or there's a demand for this? I don't know. I mean, it's weird, and it's if you take in consideration the Apple thing, they just released their stuff this week, right? I mean, I have a whole, we can talk about that in a second, but what do you see? Is it customer led, or are we just all fumbling around in the dark? Which I think that's more like what we're doing is when I
I,
say we,
I,
customers and providers.
I think everybody is unsure of what this is going to mean for us.
Mhm.
The thing I always think about is what business problem are we trying to solve? I don't really care what technology we're going to use for it. But if you don't start with something that is tangible and a real problem, no matter what you develop is not going to be worthwhile. And so customers have asked us, what are you guys doing? Sometimes we're able to kind of share our thoughts on
Mhm.
it. We ask what they're doing. I think that's where, depending on the size of the customer, if you don't have a full blown IT staff, you're probably going to be relying on what the software that you're utilizing, what they're doing, and then you're just going to be the beneficiary of it. So
Mhm.
I think it depends on how big you are, how technical your staff is. If you're a traditional office equipment dealer that doesn't have their own IT staff, whatever ERP you use or CRM, you're going to automatically inherit that capability, but you're probably not building it yourself.
Right, right. Well, along those lines, what do you see our CRM guys doing? Anything? along those lines?
I think they're in the same boat as Great America. I mean, I think everyone's in the experimentation boat of, what can we do? CEO Juice, I know, is doing some pretty cool things. So I think we're all sort of learning as we go and then building upon what we learn to actually solve some real problems in a better way.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Okay. So I don't hear anything about putting a SKU on it and trying to resell it.
That's not Great America's gig. I'm not saying somebody else isn't. I don't know.
I don't know. I
I
don't see it.
I still think we're years away.
Yeah, I don't.
Years away from something like that.
I think we'll never have it. I don't think there's going to be a SKU to AI because I think it's going to be everyone's own AI, and it's going to and then go back to the Apple thing. Apple's release was taken with a big yawn by a lot of people because it looked like the same thing that Droid and DOS and all the other companies were doing for the last year and a half or whatever. When you start digging into it, they were the small things, and the small things are what people really like. So it's kind of a weird thing. It's like, and it's integrated. It actually was the announcement and the motion that they are going through is a lot more significant than the big guys are giving it credit for. But actually, I saw a few people turning their heads this week saying, "Well, you know what? That was pretty good," and they are cutting edge, and it is going to be. It's. I know you guys were all there at the same time when the whole Windows versus Mac thing came out in the 90s, right? You were either Mac or you were Windows. Well, we're seeing that now. I think the lines are going to be drawn in the same way. You're either an MS-DOS head or you're an iOS person. Very interesting.
When you talk about sort of the how excited do we get, it's like when you go to build a new house, and you're laying concrete foundations. It's not very, I mean, you're excited about what's gonna be, but the foundations aren't very sexy. And so I think that's kind of what's happening now. People are starting to lay the foundation. I think as you build the house up and you start, framing it up, then all of a sudden it's going to look like a house. And I think the excitement will grow really when you're able to deliver some value. And when I think about the value of AI, it's either going to deliver you insights you wouldn't have been able to get easily, or it's going to increase your efficiency. And so maybe both, I don't know, depending on what it is. And so I think people are in the experimentation, what kind of concrete do I use? Do I use sand? And so we're all kind of trying to figure that out. I think once people are comfortable with how it fits into the rest of the architecture of their organization and start building the real solutions, I think we're going to see it just skyrocket in value.
Yeah. What do you think, Art?
I don't think too much about AI from time to time. I think about the clients and the next lease and the next
Well, that's
buyout.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what if I could tell you of your client list, here are the ones they're going to upgrade without you doing anything. Don't probably need to spend a lot of time with them. Here are the ones that, I'm going to do a pre-approval because I know this is what they're going to want for their next. I mean, so it's the insights for you that I think that you will benefit from.
So that would be nice to get a notification 6 months prior saying, hey, Art, guess what? We've pre-approved this company already. So if you'd like to go out and tackle, if you haven't already, or if you'd like to go out and tackle that project, go right ahead. And from time to time too, CRMs aren't perfect. Data can get actually, because there's a manual process, that those upgrade trigger points can get misplaced or not entered at all. So something that you mentioned, where something comes out 6 months prior and say, hey, we got a pre-approval, that's a trigger, right, in the process. And I think that would help dealers and salespeople tremendously, because who knows, maybe there is a 5% or 10% error in their CRM for when they're recording, when the next leases due, or when that lease is going to expire, or even if the salesperson hit the wrong keypad on the keyboard and scheduled them for a year follow-up when they should have done 3 months or 6 months when that lease is coming due.
And I can tell you some CRMs are already doing that because we're integrated with all of the major industry CRMs. It's pulling in their portfolio data,
right? And
workflow is automatically being built, based on time-based, just like you said, we know what the term date is. 6 months before or whatever it is, create these activities, assign them here. I mean, anything to sort of increase that efficiency. And that's not even really AI. I mean, that's just doing workflow stuff. So
Yeah.
I think there's capabilities like that exist today and people are utilizing it. And it's like, how do we build upon it?
Yeah, I think the AI. So if you could intermix or interface with the actual activity that's happening at the asset, then the AI can make a prediction as to what device they should be recommended. I mean, that's a real basic, but I mean, because all we're collecting are volumes, I think, reliably, and that's even not even that reliable.
That's
So
usually that's usually enough to make the prediction or the
yeah, you're right. We're not
representation as to
talking
what
rocket
equipment
science.
the sales group could even
Yeah.
recommend.
So, well, actually, Great America would have that information because they're in some cases, right? Because they're doing the billing,
Yep.
right? So, in theory, you could see a spike in color usage, or even I don't know if you get to this detail, but a move away from 11 by 17 and more at 8.5 by 11. So, the recommendation would be this type machine based on the last 3 years of the lease, right?
The way we bill usage is it's by meter group. So if a dealer is charging extra for 11 by
Oh,
17
okay. Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
they're sending us that meter, then we could tell that. If
Right.
they're just doing 1.5 times a regular one, we don't have access to that.
Okay.
But I think, Art, you bring up a really important part. In order for AI to work or automation in general or any workflow solution, you have to have good data.
Yes.
So I think that is something that everybody is really focused on now, because in AI, you're going to draw the wrong answer. Like, it's not like it won't be helpful, it will be wrong. And so I think
Right.
having a good, clean data set is key. I mean, that is the food that AI eats.
Along that front, I had another conversation with someone who was last week to where the AI will be able to determine if it's good or bad data. That I don't know what that means,
Probably,
but it's like,
I'm guessing. I mean,
how do you do that? Well,
with a big enough data set, I can tell
right,
you, I didn't drink 1,000 ounces of water today. Like,
right. No, yeah. So you could, if you take a composite, a macro look at all the data and there's an anomaly, then you can start to make judgment. Well, that's probably not good data. And the basic, whoo, that's kind of
and then
dangerous.
can you automatically modify the model to extract that without a human person doing something? I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah. Synthetic data, I think, is what they call it. Well, that's after the models are set, then it starts creating its own data. That's a whole nother dimension of weirdness, but wow. All right. Woo. So I had a question and I forgot what it was. It was customer facing, something to do with equipment too, Art. Dang it. Yeah. So any, what differences are you seeing or shifts at all in the market, or do you have visibility into the different equipment tendencies or things that are changing?
personally, I think that we are doing a lot more than people would consider traditional.
Okay.
And we're really just listening to what's the direction of our customers going, and then how do we support them, with financing programs. I don't know the
That's the
specific
life.
kind of areas, but production, we're doing, more of that now. IT services, IT hardware, lots of stuff beyond just a printer or a copier.
Well, that's okay. Yeah. So is that is that happening though? For instance, the IT side, is that growing? Did that slow down and now rebound, or where's that at?
I think what's interesting is the people who are doing it well are doing it really well, and they are growing.
Okay.
People who are not doing it well are probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What
But
could,
how is that different than anything in life? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so what can you credit that? I mean, that's typical, right? Was it before no one really cared that it was mediocre service versus excellent service, and now people want excellent service? I mean, what is
it's
making
funny.
that
I
happen?
was at a couple of dealers, I guess it was just last week, and all the that they were kind of separate sales teams, those that were selling the technology and those that were selling like the IT services.
Okay.
And in this particular dealer, and I don't know, maybe this is unique, but they are really collaborating more with each other. And the things we'd always heard in the past is, your copy want to let IT in because they didn't want to ruin that relationship, because
Yep.
supporting IT can have a more detrimental effect if it doesn't go well. Particular
Correct.
dealership, they are working hand in hand and having great success at it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sure that there was some, due process for the IT side to prove that it could actually deliver without, hurting those relationships. So, I mean, it probably was not an overnight thing.
Same with the copier side. I mean, they can learn how to shut up during a sales call, for instance.
Well, so it's interesting because I think those that figure that out will be able to be more successful than those that operate uniquely and are not able to gap.
100%. Yeah, of course, that was true 10 years ago.
Agreed. I don't
Yeah.
trying though of crossover. Now I feel like people are trying to figure that out.
Good. Cool. That's very interesting. Okay. So back to on the finance, you might not know this. So on the finance side, I was trying to get into what visibility you have into the economics of global economics right now and how that's impacting everything. I can make guesses and things. I'm sure you all can, but what can you boil that down into your world as to how the macroeconomics and global economics and everything else is impacting? We can all guess,
To
but
give
I
you
want
my
to hear.
opinion again with
Yeah,
the big
yeah,
asterisks.
absolutely.
We thought that the Fed was going to lower rates a couple of times this year.
Uh-huh.
And now the current projection is maybe one time this year, and not even dramatically. And so I think that has put a lot of pressure on everybody, because it's a harder sell when rates are higher. And we have spent 10 years in a low rate environment.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
what's funny is it's higher. Nobody's going to argue that, but it's not like 80s high.
Yeah.
And so, it's better than it could be, but it's worse than it was.
Right. But salespeople have to get better now. The thought of going in and saying, I can save you money is over. Right. In addition, the thought of having lower cost per pages is over. Right. Because, I see it. I get quotes. I get, I can read bids that come across, and, cost per pages have increased. Even when I'm out there selling, I can't give the same cost per page I was given 5 years ago. It's just not possible. So as salespeople, we have to do a better job of selling. But I've also noticed that when you speak to somebody about, what type of pain they have, or, how the economy is for them, everybody agrees that everything has gone up. So expecting they expect a higher cost. So in some sense, it's made my job a little bit easier, because there's so much hoopla out there about, everything's going up, the cost, the cost of food, the cost of gas. It's actually made my job a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's, and you know what, Art, that's kind of typical though with every other economic spike. When everything goes up, raising your prices is quote easier, right? Because, and most of the time, or a lot of the times, it's justified, right? I mean, it costs money to ship things, so the fuel costs are going up for everyone. So my CP cost per image is going to go up because everything else has gone up. We're just quote passing the costs, and then there's always the ones. And we're seeing it like crazy with the big guys. They're laying off people and raising prices, but $9 billion in profit. So but that always happens too. So,
Yeah.
Right.
So the one other benefit of leasing, right, is that it's a hedge against inflation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Tawnya can, agree to that, right?
Yep.
Money today devalues over time.
Yep. No, agreed.
Yeah. Anything new in the leasing world? Legislation, anything like that you know of?
So there's something new called 1071,
Okay.
which will affect loans, not leases.
Okay.
It's going into effect, and I'm way over my skis on this one.
Right.
But for certain types of transactions, for certain business sizes, we're going to have to collect data about the borrower and keep it separate from the credit decisioning, so that obviously you can't make a decision based on this data. But it's really to encourage fair lending practices. It's not all transactions, it's not all, whatever. But that's going to be coming out in the next, probably, I don't know if there's been a final date. I've heard beginning of 26. So that'll be a little bit of a shift. And if it's a lease, I don't think it applies, but on some of our like EFAs or SFAs, I think it could apply potentially to those. Also in some states, some types of transactions, we're having to send disclosures out to the end user that really lays out the transaction. So, even though we're not a bank, there are certain regulations that we have to follow that unfortunately make it harder sometimes for, the equipment lender. Now, the equipment seller, they're going to have to do this no matter who they're working with. So it's not like this is a Great America thing at all. Right. It's going to be everything. But I do think there's going to be some complications probably coming up that, well, just more education and figuring out how to navigate it.
Yeah. Now that started in California, didn't it?
Started in California, then I went to New York, and there's a handful of states, and I don't even want to try to name them, but it's becoming very more common than it used to be.
New Jersey will be next.
There's a certain color associated with each one, by the way. Which reminds, okay, so I had another question. Dang it. Oh, so what scale? I forget. Where does Great America go? Enterprise is what? Is it Fortune 100s or Fortune 1000s? Or
like our customers?
Yeah. What's your demographic? I hate using that word, but what is the? Yeah,
I would say we used to probably primarily hit the SMB market. But I feel like, Great America has diversified into other markets. And so now I don't think we have we hit them all. I mean, we have, end users and customers that range, from large OEMs all the way to small organizations, both as end users and customers. So we kind of run the gamut.
So, I mean, if Johnson & Johnson came in, they're an F100 and they needed a lease, and you guys would obviously step up to that, right? So the scale, okay.
I mean, I can't comment on their credit. I don't know, but assuming that they were a good credit, yes.
Right. Okay. So is there any deal that's we're going down another rabbit hole, but I mean, there's monetarily or financially, is there a deal that's too big? Yeah. What would that?
I would say when you get larger than a couple $1 million, we're just going to have different people looking at the deal. I wouldn't say there's probably anything inherently too big, because we can find a way to do a lot of things. We take the larger ones are certainly more unique for us. We're not doing those 10 a day. So we're looking at a little bit different things.
So I've got a question for you, Tawnya. So how about
I gotta correct you, Art. You and Greg were saying Tawnya.
It's Tawnya.
It's Tawnya.
I know. W is after the A.
Well, and honestly, it's like a word scramble. It's not meant to be confusing, but people do. So I figured I didn't want to have us, spend all of our time and be like, why didn't you say something?
No, say something. Thank you.
So I even asked Greg, because I wasn't curious on how to pronounce it. So I'm blaming Greg.
Blame me. I said it's pronounced Lori.
So I got a question for leasing and the U.S.
I told you enough to be dangerous, right?
That's fine.
Okay.
No, that's what I
dangerous. U.S. territories. So could I do a lease for a company that's in a U.S. territory, like Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands?
I know curious. In the past we have.
Okay.
I'm not the person to say
check
yes
with
or
your
no.
sales rep.
But check with your sales rep. And I know we've done it in the past. I had a friend who actually used to work at Great America, and the Virgin Islands was his territory. And I know amongst other places, but at one point we did. Who knows?
Okay.
If that's a burning question, I can find out for you, Art.
No, not really. Not really. I just had something come across where some client wanted to get a piece of equipment, wanted to ship it to the U.S. Virgin Islands. So then it brought up all these other questions, which are, okay, well, you want to lease it and it's going to go out of country.
But it's not really, but it isn't.
Yeah,
It
I don't
is, and it
know.
isn't. It's like,
So,
that's
so,
interesting.
so that deal hasn't come to fruition yet, but and it's not even close, but I figured I would just ask. Now I know to call Steve.
That's right. He will know the answer, I guarantee you.
Oh, yes, he will. Yes, he will.
So Tawnya, how long have you been with Great GA?
13 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. All right. And it recently, within the last 5 or 6 years, right? Was there retirement ownership or something? C-level guy went away, or wasn't there was a normal transition of some sort, right?
Yeah. So now Martin, who is a second generation to the founder,
Oh,
is
really?
our CEO. So if you guys have not watched, I think it's on YouTube, to watch Tony Golobic's story, it is literally incredible. I can't even express how much respect I have for what he started with and where we are today in such a really short amount of time. I mean, it's 30 years. So now we're led by Martin, who is the CEO. And he is building a very strong leadership team. So I'm super excited about kind of the direction Great America is going. So I think
cool.
good things are in the works.
Yeah, and it's kind of, so this sort of segues into this whole negative economics, AI, the transition of technology so quickly. And I think we've kind of touched on it, but what we're going to see is a divergence of those who do it well and those who were mediocre. And again, every economic challenge does separate that, right? But this one is huge. And you could even say it was cyclical in the past. This one is secular. This will change, like, and I here's my example. So you have people who write for a living, right? And they write very well. They might write fiction, but in long form, they've gone to school, they're trained, they write very well. And not to diminish, but there are copywriters, okay? And these folks will write ad copy text for a tire commercial, or something like, this sounds terrible what I'm saying, but that's what it is. And you've got maybe an 80-20 split, and it's probably higher 90-10 between that, because the way journalism and writing has taken place over before AI. But then you see AI come in, and it's going to wipe out 80 to 90% of all that copyright. That, again, it sounds terrible, but the mediocre, the mechanical type of writing, where that more creative, that more substantial human type thing is going to survive. But I see that throughout all our sectors. Like, accounts payable clerks, when they used to cut checks by hand, you didn't have to be that good at it. You still have a job. You can make mistakes, but when the computerized systems came in, wiped them all out. Now you didn't have an accounts payable team. You had one person. Remember when you used to have controllers? Now we have CFOs. There's no controllers around anymore because all their jobs got taken away.
Well, there's an interesting quote out there, and I don't know who it belongs to, so I can't attribute it. It says, "Don't be scared of AI taking your job. Be scared of someone who knows how to use AI taking your job." And I think that's totally true. And if you want to blow your mind, I think technology is moving as slow as it ever will in our lifetime. I mean, and you look and you're like, what? Like my mom, who's almost 80 years old, she was like, Tawnya, I can't keep up. And I'm like, that's because it's moving faster than ever. And this is the slow it's ever going to move for us. And so, I mean, you think about your own kind of daily use of technology, and you're like, it's hard for me to imagine what life looks like in 10 years.
It's impossible.
Well, and you look 10 years ago, yeah, it looked different, but the rate in which it's going to change and will continue to change is just mind-blowing.
It is. And that's true, but here's something that's really interesting. It used to be mind-blowing for a majority of folks, but there might have been 5% of the quote experts who could, navigate that change, right? Okay, it's going to be risky, the Steve Jobs, those kind of guys that actually did it well. Well, now I'm hearing more and more from those type, that 1 to 3% of the real quote unquote experts, and they don't know. And they admit it. It's like, there's no way I can keep up with this. It changes every 48 hours. And they're talking everything from manufacturing to regulation, legislation, global, because AI takes it all. It's everywhere. So if there's a war going on somewhere, that impacts not just oil and all, it impacts AI. Everything now is so connected. And you're right. moving so quickly that there literally are no experts. There really
Yeah.
aren't. And the best ones are the ones that says, we don't know. We've got to respond
An
in
experiment.
hours. Yes. It's this whole thing is experimental,
Yeah.
right? We'll tell that to a CEO in charge of a, multi-billion-dollar budget. And we're really starting to see that, the contention up there in those office spaces are huge because they've got to take risks like never before. And there's no way around it. So
Yeah.
anyway,
No,
it's just very interesting. Yeah. And then, we're trying to talk about how we can sell a couple more copiers or, some more MPS contracts. And it's like, maybe we don't, I don't know, but yeah, very interesting. And that's what I was going to say. So that's why I was talking about scale. And what deals you're dealing with is, what has the pace of change been? I think you just answered that question. It's like, it's nuts.
well, I think business owners are trying to figure out, there's lots of things you could diversify into. Some things make sense, some things don't make sense. Where are you going to put your big bets? It's
Oof. I don't know.
an interesting world.
Yeah. Yeah, sure
Still the
is.
wild, wild west for quite a few more years.
I love it. I mean, this is just, I'm digging it every hour now. It's like crazy. It just doesn't stop. And so anyway, that's me. Let's see. What else should we ask, Art?
I got a question.
There.
Tanya, any plans for the weekend?
We are leaving for Thailand on Wednesday.
Oh, nice.
So this weekend is get our act together weekend.
Rep. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Some beach in Thailand?
We are spending time in Bangkok, Chiang Mai, and Phuket. So kind of get
Wow.
the city, the mountain, foresty, and then the beach. So
Beautiful.
hard to pack for that though.
I guess so, right? Or
Wow.
pack nothing and just buy the clothes as you need them.
Yeah, I don't know. And
How did you come to that? Have you been there before?
I have not. And it has
Oh.
always been sort of a bucket list place.
Okay.
This summer I have a milestone birthday. So I'm like, you know what? My daughter's graduating college this next year. So it's probably our last big family trip before hopefully she has a
Oh.
job.
Right.
And so we're just doing it.
Wow. That's
Awesome.
great.
Awesome.
Well, everyone should go to Thailand on their 30th birthday. I've always said
I
that.
love it. Yes.
Interesting.
So what is your daughter graduating in with?
Nursing from Creighton.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So should not have a problem finding a job.
I was just going to say she should be able to find a job.
Yeah. Her
Yeah.
plan right now, we'll see, is to move to Virginia Beach after graduation and then go back to school for her nurse practitioner. So we'll
That's
see.
cool. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
And where do you live?
Wow.
I'm in Iowa.
Okay.
I grew up here. My parents live here. And I have a handicapped sister who lives with them. They take care of her. Moved out to the East Coast for about 12, 13 years and
Okay.
then needed to come back and just be closer to family
Yep.
to help support. And was not ever intended to stay here forever. But 20 years later, I guess I live in Iowa.
Yeah, I know that happens to a lot of people, but a lot of different places. Well,
Right.
I remember being in Iowa. I had a blast. It's one of my favorite spots actually, because we had so much fun out there.
We know how to have a good time.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, and then Iowa came up in my world a couple times because they're getting some more bourbon distillers out there. Because
Yeah, we
I
are.
don't know. I understand that you have corn in Iowa, which some people don't know.
We have a little bit of corn. Yeah.
A little bit.
I love
So,
it.
Greg, what's going on this weekend? Anything?
It's gonna be hot in
Yeah.
Michigan, like 91, 95, that kind of hot, which is cool. So we're opening up the pool.
Nice. And it's Father's Day.
God, it's
Oh yes,
Father's
it is.
Day.
It's Father's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad is 90 years old.
Oh, God bless him.
So, yeah, I know. So and then sister's coming down, so we'll have fun. That kind of stuff. Nothing too nuts.
That's great. That's great.
And you, Art, what are you going? You going to Russia, Cuba, anywhere
I got my
interesting?
son and the granddaughters coming over on Sunday, which will be a good experience, especially with the 3-year-old and one that's going to be 4.5 years old. Right?
Jeez, I'm tired already.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
They'll want to
they say
go.
being a grandparent's better than a parent. Is it true?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I'm in no hurry, mind you,
Yeah.
You
but
can get rid of them. You can just
You got
okay, yeah,
2 or
yeah.
3 hours and you enjoy the heck out of them. And then they go back to mom and dad.
Full of candy.
And spoil them like crazy. Yeah, it's actually extremely enjoyable. I hope they have one more. So they got 2 girls. I'm hoping they can have a boy, get a boy.
Well,
So
that's cool.
yeah,
That's cool.
so
That's good. Tawnya, one more. What would your parting shot? Any observation, prediction, pontification for the
I would just say
yeah.
be curious. There's so many opportunities out there for people that are curious and have an open mindset to try new things and learn new things and do new things that I haven't ever seen that fail you personally or professionally.
Love it.
yep,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Cool.
Tanya, I want to thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on your show. Be on our show.
Well, it was a pleasure. Didn't know that I was walking into clearly.
There you go.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah, we were easy, right?
It was very, very, very friendly. And I love hanging out with 2 incredibly smart, fun people.
And
There you
plenty of
go.
nuggets here. Plenty
We're
of nuggets in
smart
this one.
and funny, right? Well,
Oh
we
boy.
want to thank you. Thank you very, very much. And
Yeah, Tawnya, thanks a lot.
Greg, you have yourself a good weekend. I'm going to end the show and we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. And please like, follow, subscribe, and we'll see you next Friday.
Cheers.
Bye,
Great
everyone.
seeing you guys.
See ya.